it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage a folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The paupers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways, where tonight we are talking about the purpose for darkness, the purpose of evil, the purpose of that which we don't usually enjoy very much, the purpose that exists for all of this, because it would not exist without a purpose. And it is actually important for us to understand that. Otherwise, we might fall into the way of believing that we are victims, that we are not in control of ourselves and our destiny, our experiences and our lives, or that we are helpless little beings of nothingness cast about in a mechanistic universe of emptiness and void, which is not what we are. And so in order to understand why is there suffering? Why is there darkness? Or should there be darkness and negativity? Then we may need to look into it. And on the very simplest level, everything is a spectrum. Right? Everything exists from positive to negative. In all of the universe, in fact, there's nothing but the spectrum of duality and all of the shades of gray in between the black and the white, right? This is why we have masculine and feminine. It's why we have positive and negative electronically, electrically. The whole universe is a push and a pull. Everything is this. And if you studied any Hermeticism or any alchemy or anything like this, then you've seen that this is an understanding that people had even before materialist science proved that that is actually true, and that everything is constantly moving back and forth between the push and the pull, the positive and the negative. And so there's a purpose for having the negative then, and at least one good purpose for that is that the positive wouldn't exist without it. Otherwise, everything would just be the same neutral gray tone, no differentiation between anything, and you and I would not exist. So the very, very most basic and most clear and blunt way to think about it is that the reason anything exists, including you, is because there is darkness and there is evil. So let's get into it a little bit deeper as we go. And I will just remind you that I am Lindsay Sharman, and this is Rogue Ways, and I am a spiritual healer and teacher. I have been for many decades. I am the CEO of Rogue Soul Co. I work with people one-on-one. I teach classes. I help people step up into their highest self. I help people release karmic negativity and imbalance. I help people transform into the best version of themselves that they can live. And I teach any spiritual tactic, any gift, or anything, any understanding, just like I'm doing here today on the show. I do that one-on-one. I do it in groups. I do it via retreats. I do it via electronic events, Zoom retreats. You can find everything I do at rogueways.org. That is where you can book sessions with me, see my books, see the channeled messages that I write, and also over on rogueways.substack.com is where my channeled messages come out for supporters first. I would love for you to go to either of those places, sign up on my email list at the site, sign up for Substack and be a supporter there. Get those channel messages as they come through. I do work with the spiritual ancestors. Those are the beings that I have been in connection with my entire life, and channel via messages that come out there and in my books. So check it all out, rogueways.org and rogueways.substack.com. And we'll begin here. You know, there's something that is interesting in the pathologically love and light crew, where people have decided that negativity isn't okay, or that anything that they deem destructive isn't appropriate. I've heard from many groups and people that claim to be spiritual that anger, for example, is not appropriate, that you should never be angry. And if you are, there's something wrong with you, that you're not doing a spiritually good enough job if you get angry. And we can probably all agree that ideally we're not bursting into anger and we're not lashing out at people in anger. That isn't appropriate most of the time. But anger does actually serve a purpose. Anger actually does serve the purpose of, for example, spurring us into action in righteous ways. And one example that's super easy for everyone to see would be I use this all the time. If somebody was running at your baby with an axe or some other sort of ability to harm your baby, and they were clearly going to harm your baby, this is when your anger would come. Your anger and your adrenaline would rise up within you, and you would become a warrior. And then you would use that energy to stop the aggressor, right? And this is self defense, right? Just like you see in this image with the hand up against the fist, like, no, you are not allowed actually to aggress upon me. This is actually a sacred place to stand. This is actually standing in your divinity. And it's different from going out to find trouble, right? It's different from going out saying, I am this and that, and you have to da da da. Like, not that kind of self righteousness that we could criticize, but no, righteous action is often associated with a warrior energy, and the warrior is a sacred archetype, right? Even in any sort of mythological or theological, philosophical sort of divinity that we could look into, there are protectors, there are warriors, there are archangels, for example, some of whom I've interacted with, who are there to protect the innocent and to do battle against evil and negative energies on the spiritual plane. You're allowed to defend yourself at all times. And, some people want to be pacifists. That's great. But you can't actually say in this universe that that is something that all people should be striving towards. In fact, there are people who very specifically seek out pacifists in order to attack them or steal from them or hurt their babies. There are psychopaths in the world, right? So ideally, we have this understanding that all of the energy we could possibly carry has some purpose somewhere else we wouldn't have it. The universe isn't actually a random place. We didn't accidentally come together and create humanity. We didn't just stumble into this form and this place on accident, actually. Right? Some people think that that's not actually what's going on. And so everything within us has some sort of role. It has some sort of sacred role and purpose. And anger has that role. Anger is our protective mechanism. It is actually to serve us. We do sometimes need to protect ourselves. And there's the idea in anarchy, which, again, if you know what actual anarchy is probably very different from what you might have been indoctrinated to believe, but it really just means that no one gets to control you. And one of the principles in true anarchy is the non-aggression principle. And this is that you don't aggress upon people. You don't force yourself on them. You don't take from them without asking. You don't, think that you get to force them to do anything a certain way. Your neighbor could let their lawn grow up and weeds be everywhere, and you can hate it, but you can't do anything about it. It's their lawn. They get to grow weeds if they want to, right? There's a kind of basic example. And it would say you don't use violence. You don't use force. And it's not really violence or force in this case, but because some people don't understand the difference, you say, unless someone is aggressing upon you, right? If someone's coming over and saying, you have to cut your grass, I'm going to cut it for you, you can say no, and you can physically pick them up and remove them from your property, right? Or again, in the case of the baby, you can physically stop them. And if that leads to harm of their body or self, that is actually on them. This is true karmically too. Again, if you interact on those levels, if you travel in spiritual spaces, if you connect with higher dimensional or higher energetic beings, then you know that. That is a law of the universe. That karma is theirs. Right? And again, people think that there's no precedence for this in our theology or in our various different traditions, but there actually is. And one that people really find astonishing is the Buddha. The Buddha, there's actually many Buddhas, but the one that we call the Buddha, Gautama Buddha, said, like, yeah, it's actually okay to kill people. This blows people's minds. And especially, again, I think a lot of times in the what I call pathologically love and light community, and the people who believe they have studied deeply, and they have, but it is possible to see just the cherry-picked bits, especially of another culture's background. And I think that this is what happens a lot of the time. So people pretend that Buddhism equals pacifism. And it doesn't. The Buddha himself literally has a parable where he talks about this boat, right? And these people are crossing the river in a boat, and some psychopath, not his words, my words, some psychopath comes and is like, I'm going to kill everyone on this boat. I'm going to sink it. I'm going to drown everyone. And the Buddha is like, well, then it's okay to kill that person. And the Buddha kills that person. And that is karmically neutral. If anything, it is actually good karma for you because you just saved 25 lives by killing one person. I will again stress, I am not condoning, I'm not saying you should go out and find situations where someone's killing all these people and then you kill them and you feel like you're, like, don't go looking for trouble again. But if you're in this position, ask yourself, what would I do if I was in a position and there was a boat crossing and I saw someone who's about to, drop a bomb in that boat and kill everyone, and I had the chance to, from afar, shoot them, but it could only be in the head, and I knew they were going to die. Should I do it? I'll tell you too, they do this with AI now. They do it with cars, self-driving cars. They have to train it in these exact sorts of situations, and it has to then choose the least harm. So it feels a little bit non-human to do it. It feels a little bit like, how could I make a decision like this? And no one, including me, is going to judge you on whatever decision you do make. The question is really more put forward as a potential. Like, what would it be karmically if I were to kill somebody, but it was to save these people? And that's the answer, is like, this does not weigh on your soul, actually. You at the soul level wouldn't even let it weigh on your soul. You at this human level might be like, no, I'm a pacifist. I can't. That might be distressing for you. But once you leave this body and drop it and you go back into your highest soul self and you look at it, you're not going to have a problem with that. You're not going to have a problem with that decision at all. So it's interesting, people, again, often because they're prideful, often because they've misunderstood, often because they just think they're superior, they will push the violent, the pacifist choice, and they will especially try to justify it, saying that our spiritual traditions have supported this. And I've not found a spiritual tradition yet that does, except perhaps Jainism and a few like pretty minor offshoots, cults of various religions, but not the big ones, right? Not the main traditions that we can talk about across the world. So pretty interesting. In fact, Jesus was the same. And people often misinterpret this passage. If you're interpreting this, again, just from the sort of shallow spiritual side of it, especially the egoic spiritual side of things, then you tend to interpret these passages where Jesus says, turn the other cheek, carry it an extra mile, right? These sorts of things as pacifism, as him saying, like, you know what, it's okay. If the Roman soldiers are abusing you, just let them do it. But if you talk to historians, of Roman times and of the Roman soldiers, that's not at all what was going on. When you talk to historians say Romans soldiers were held to an exceptionally strict standard, and they were required to not abuse the people where they were positioned, right? The pieces where they had occupied, they were not supposed to abuse the people. They're very strict about it. So if you were going to break any of these rules, you might be killed, for example, as a Roman soldier. At the very least, you would lose your post, and now you have no livelihood. And so one of their rules was, you can make someone help carry some of your pack as you're traveling. You can do that, but only for a mile. And if it goes beyond a mile, you might be killed. You can slap someone if they're not following orders, but you can't hit them twice. You can hit them once, just to get some sense into them, but not twice. This is not an exaggeration. These were actual rules that these soldiers had to live by. So when Jesus says, turn the other cheek, he's saying, try to get them to hit you again. Now watch what happens. That would directly lead to harm against this soldier. That's not a pacifist choice. I'll remind people too that Jesus went into the banking tables and flipped them and whipped the bankers. Not pacifist to whip a human being, right? And that wasn't even a direct non-aggression principle behavior, right? Like he went and sought the trouble and did it. So he would go a step beyond even the anarchist non-aggression principle. Very interesting. So when people paint Jesus as this pacifist, as this non-aggressive person, that is not what is borne out by the texts, right? So if you take Jesus as a real person, as a historical figure, and as these things as having happened, then Jesus was a rebel and he was trying to get Roman soldiers messed up. That's a very different story from what you might hear in church. Again, a lot of our theologians are not necessarily historians, so the two takes on what's happening here are very different, right? But we can be very rational about it. We can see what he was actually saying. Right. So people might think that's dark. They might think that's a little bit evil. They might think, oh, killing someone just even to save other people is like not what I want on my soul, or trying to get a soldier in trouble by, making them break these rules. That's too much. But this serves a purpose, right? In the boat incidents with the Buddha, it serves the purpose of saving all those lives. In this situation with Jesus, it serves the purpose of waking people up to their own sovereignty and their ability to choose an outcome for themselves that is not dictated by a political organization, but is instead dictated by a higher understanding of self and sovereignty. So there's purposes here, and these choices, again, if we're talking karma, are karmically neutral. And then there's this question too of like, well, what about all the darkness that accumulates with someone who is making really dark, negative choices? Again, whether we understand why or not, maybe they're born into hardship, maybe they were treated horribly as a child in really grotesque ways that we don't even want to think about. Maybe they grew up in just the worst places, the worst people around them. They barely had a chance. So they ended up doing some stuff. It was heavy. It was dark, like really icky, gross energy. And then they die. And now what? And they had all this darkness around them. Did they even have a choice, right? Was it ever going to be able to work out for them well? Could they ever have gotten through all that darkness and kept some sort of bright, shining light and purity? Maybe not. And so we have this concept of hell, right? And people go to hell. People go to hell because they did bad things. And we have this presented, and it's actually interesting because it is beyond the Christian conception. We actually have the word hell itself in other traditions, like the Norse traditions, and it's not such a negative place. Not so bad, actually. It's not quite as bad. And we also have other versions of what we might call hell from the Western perspective, but they have other names. But like the underworld, right? And where people go to repent, right? Or when people go where they, even just everyone goes when they die for a time. And so every tradition sort of has this understanding of what do you do with the darkness, right? Where does it go when you die? If there is a place like heaven that is bright and pure and light, can I take all my sin there? No, we intrinsically know, like, no, that doesn't make sense. Where would it go then? Do I just get cast out of heaven forever? Do I never get to see the light again or return to that goodness again? Well, it turns out we've sort of twisted this concept over time. And perhaps, pre-Christian especially, we had this understanding that like there is actually a process after you die. And it does have to do with how dark or heavy your sins, we'll call them that for now, right? Or your negative karma has become. But it's actually a mercy. This is actually a process by which you start to unburden yourself. Like you're this tree you see next to me here, and it's just overburdened. It's so much that it's just like constricting itself and it can't even grow anymore. And so instead of trying to move on from that point, still carrying all of this, you get the mercy of passing through for a time the release of all of that. And it is alchemical. Again, if we go back to alchemy, in that it is the blackening, it's the burning off of the dross, it's the purification process. And I'll tell you, it's not painful, not in the way that we experience pain and suffering from this limited perspective in this body, in this 3D linear plane that we're in. It's not painful like that. it is painful for the soul to see from the soul's perspective what the personality chose to do. It's painful for us to do our life review and see the times that we could have given and didn't, or could have acted with a little more grace and chose not to, or intentionally hurt people for whatever reason. That's hard for us to see from that higher perspective. It's hard for us to see now when we get honest with ourselves, but especially then when we don't have the luxury of distance and space and delusion around it. We have to see it, we have to feel it, and we have to understand it for exactly what it is. It's difficult. But it's not the same as the pain we feel now. This isn't like torture. This isn't like you're going to a fiery pit and something is poking hot pokers at you and like ripping you. No. No, it's just painful for you because you see it very clearly for the first time perhaps in your entire, I'll say life for lack of a better word, but that portion of your soul's existence, that incarnation. And so you're actually grateful at this point. You're like so happy at this point to get to this place and to just let all that heavy fruit go and just shake it off and be like free of it. Very interesting. The karma doesn't actually go anywhere. The heaviness, the burden, it returns back to whence it came. The energy is freed from you. You then go into your next life and you are going to face some of that same stuff again, but you want to. You're not forced to. You're not pushed into it. You're like, oh, this time I got this. I'm going to do so much better this time. Watch me. Give me all that karma. Let's do this. Then you get born again and you're like, oh God, it's so hard. Oh, but I hate her. Oh, but I don't want to do that. Oh, this is so annoying. You get back into your human perspective. Each time you do a little bit better and better and better. And you have lots of support all the way. But hell, even, right? We think of this as dark, it's scary, and there's demons and not actually what's happening, not on the universal level. I will also say the soul has the potential for a time, the personality rather has the potential for a time to imagine that it's being tortured, or again, the life review could be hard. So to see things much more clearly can feel like that a little bit. And we can get stuck there, and things like that, but we always end up eventually getting back on track. And in the meantime, we've had this release of all of this heaviness. We've got a fresh new start. Our energy is flowing again easily, and we get to go back with that intention to do even better than we ever have before. It's actually a beautiful thing. So there's no hell like punishment. There's just hell like relief. It's very weird to talk about because the word no longer seems to fit. Like, why are we still calling it hell when we understand that it's actually some process that is very helpful for us and that we choose and that we're grateful for, right? It needs a different name. Purification perhaps would be a better name, but for now we'll move on from even hell having a purpose, right? This thing that we could think is dark and gross, it's got a purpose. Everything so far, in fact, has a purpose. The anger has a purpose. The murder has a purpose. The resistance, the rebellion has a purpose. And hell has a purpose too. And, there's this idea too where we say, well, I'm suffering though, or like someone came and they attacked me, or, a really good example is parasites. Parasites come and some people have parasite issues. I'm talking about physical, bugs like inside your body. And that's a really good example because it's a really good parallel. And we can feel the abhorrence. We can go like, oh, parasites in the body, like, God, like this is the worst thing you can imagine. Like this thing is living in me and like destroying me, harming me. But we can also identify with like, why me? Why did that happen to me? Right. And we do this with a lot of our experiences in life. We do the same thing, right? A toxic person will come into our life. They're like a parasite, and all of a sudden they're sucking us dry, and we're just in this drama. And why did this person pick me? Why are they attacking me? Or like, why are they making my life hell? And so it's the same, right? It's parasite in your body, it's parasite in your life, and you feel victimized. You feel like you're a victim. But it's interesting, with parasites in the body, parasites don't thrive in the body if the body is healthy. They can't actually. So the truth actually is that parasites are everywhere all the time, physical ones, body ones. worms and issues everywhere all the time. I mean, not like literally on every single surface, but like they're all over the place. They're in life, they're in food, they're on surfaces, they're around. You have encountered parasites your whole life. You probably have some in you right now. Sorry not to freak you out. It's just true. But if your body became weak, they would get out of balance. Now you'd have too many parasites. Now you'd know you had parasites and it'd be a problem for you, right? In your life in general, if you don't have good boundaries, if you don't have the ability to know who you are at a higher level and to choose what you're experiencing and to choose what is for you and what's not, then people will come and be parasites in your life. And the same is true spiritually as well. And for all of those, you could say, why me? Why is this spiritual force attacking? Or why is this person in my life? Why are these parasites in my body? But it comes back to, why is your field such, your energy such, your boundaries such, or your lack of understanding of self such that they are able to? And that flips the script. And again, this is like one of the hardest things to talk about, because you never deserve to be treated poorly. You never deserve to be attacked. You don't deserve for the parasite to be in your life. You're worth more than that, is the point. Your value is such that it is ideal for you to know it and choose not to have parasites, is the point. So when the parasite comes and it's in your body, it has to find food to eat. It has to find the stuff that is excess or there's extra toxins, right? Parasites, you have to have chosen in some way to reduce your body's vitality, right? You've got like EMF and you've got smog and you've got chemicals and you're not eating well and you're drinking or you're partying or you're whatever. Well, like the parasites love that. Actually, the parasites of every level love that. Parasites of every level happen to have very similar things they're attracted to. And it's that very low energy. It's that lack of the ability to choose for the self. And it's that lack of understanding of self-worth. They love it. When we're choosing to, and we say, I'm worth more than this, we eat better, we exercise more, we drink more pure water, we clarify ourselves, we know our intentions, we know our boundaries, we know our worth on the spiritual level. You know, people have asked me before, like, how do you confront some of these dark energies on the spiritual level? And for me, it's exactly the same as doing it face to face. If you come up and test me, I will have a good boundary for you. I don't want to, but I know I want much less to let you surpass the boundary and then have to deal with that. So I've learned that I do actually want to have this boundary. I do actually want to take excellent care of myself. Right? And some people have said, "Oh, you're very harsh. Like you don't even put up with like a little, like it was just a joke." Oh, it's not a joke to me. This is my life, actually. I'm real happy with it. And the reason I'm so happy with it is I don't let people ever cross any of my boundaries. I don't let spiritual entities cross any of my boundaries. I luckily am a human, so I have free will, so I get to do that. Not every being in the universe has the same luxury as me, but they also don't have to deal with negative spiritual entities. So, you know, there's that trade-off. But you have to know that. You have to know that your energy and your field is such that you're choosing it, you're intentional about it, you have these boundaries, and nothing gets to eat your energy. Right? If you have all the excess stuff in your body and eat too much and you have all this and you got like the toxins and whatever, the parasites might eat it. They might proliferate there because they want to eat it. If you have no boundaries and you just will let people take from you and take from you, then the psychopaths are going to show up, the narcissists are going to show up, the parasites are going to show up, and they're going to take from you and eat your energy. And on the spiritual level, if you're just throwing out all kinds of drama and all kinds of energy and you're not managing yourself and you don't know your worth, then the parasites are going to come and they're going to eat all that extra energy. So they seem awful to us. I don't like parasites physically. I don't like people who are parasites, and I don't like the spiritual entities that are dark. And again, we could go into the like, oh, why me? And this is unfair. And like, there's just evil. Well, it is evil, but it has a purpose. Who else is going to eat all that energy? Who else is going to eat all that stuff in your body? Your body doesn't want it. Something has to eat it. That's why parasites exist. They're actually the cleaners. They're the cleaning up, right? It can't exist without the food. Well, why do you have the food source there if you don't want them there? Don't give it to them. Right? Same in your life. People are like, oh, but I have to because they need help and they're just, sad and their parents beat them. You don't have to do anything. No. In fact, you're not even helping any parasite by feeding it. At some point, an energy has to choose to create its own energy and not always just suck off of something else. People included, people especially. So parasites actually have this purpose. They eat up all this stuff, but they also show us where we have weakened our defenses. Where have we stopped caring enough about ourselves to take good care of ourselves? They are training us to be always aware of what we are, who we are, where we are, what we need, what we require, what we're doing, and to be very clear. They're actually clarifying and purifying. So yes, even parasites have a purpose. Even that type of darkness has a purpose. And like I said, they're psychopaths. They exist. You go walking around anywhere, you're going to see one. You're going to see narcissists. You're going to see cluster B people. You're going to see people who are not well. You're going to see people who will absolutely take advantage of you if they can. You will also see people who genuinely need your help, and you're very nice to help them, and that's a great choice if they're not take, destroy, then yeah, help people. Have compassion for people, absolutely. And also don't let them take from you just endlessly, right? Again, you're not doing them any favors. People who are allowed to be parasites, who are allowed to fall into their lowest nature and just take, who are allowed to, even if they've had the best reason to choose that route, you are still not helping them be a better person, choose better for themselves, know their own worth and value, and heal. Everyone has to heal. Everyone's been through horrible things, not always in this current lifetime, sometimes in this current lifetime too, and they've still healed from it. Hi, I'm one of them. But in some lifetime, everyone's had the worst things you could ever imagine done to them, they've done to others. And it doesn't help any of us evolve if everyone just lets us be our worst self and never take care of ourselves and never do better. So we have compassion for these people, and then we also have standards and boundaries, and they're essential. They're essential for us to grow, to clarify, to purify. They're essential for them to eventually grow and purify. But they also train us. Like I said, I know exactly what every single boundary invader is ever doing. I am never confused about whether or not someone is trying to get something from me without giving back. It is never, ever outside of my perception whether someone is being appropriate to me or not. I am always, and it's not like this constant alert and vigilance. No, it's just, I've been trained by all the darkness I've encountered in multiple lifetimes, but this lifetime, I've had every single kind of darkness you can imagine: physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual. So I know all the tricks. I know all the things I have to do. I know all the boundaries to keep. I know what to look out for. So part of me, I used to be like, why me? Oh my God, more? Like, this life was already some of the roughest I've ever seen in anyone's life. And now more is coming my way. Like, why me? I used to be in my victimhood mentality around it. And now I'm kind of grateful. I'm like, I can't be stopped. I mean, again, not physically, not mentally, not emotionally, not socially, and not spiritually. Can't be stopped. So I've been trained, and now I'm an excellent warrior of the light, which is why I do what I do. It's my calling for a reason. And it's because I've faced down every type of psychopathy. So even the psychopaths, even the darkness, even the demons, I have to at some point say, thank you for training me to be the absolute best that I could possibly be. And also so that I could help anybody with anything. There's nothing I haven't faced and overcome myself. This is beautiful in a way. Hard won, but there's a purpose there too. On every level that we look at, we can see the reason why the darkness exists. And then you get to the mastery level of this, where even the attacks that come at you, you can use to your advantage. So this is like Aikido, right? Is a martial art, and some people call these the soft martial arts or the soft techniques, and you might call it the yin technique as well, right? It's not active; it doesn't go out seeking, even if it's a karmically appropriate. It goes out seeking to strike or hit or blow or whatever to your opponent, but instead you wait for them to act, and then you just redirect their energy back at them. And you destroy them with their own energy, and all you're ever doing is just letting them wear themselves out and harm themselves. And it's a beautiful technique. I mean, like, poetically, symbolically, like, it's beautiful. And this is what masters actually do. And I'm talking about masters spiritually, what they actually do, because spiritual masters are some of the most attacked spiritually, mentally, emotionally, socially, all levels, basically. They're some of the most attacked, and you would almost never know it. They're never sitting there going like, "Oh, there's another spiritual attack. Oh, I'm always having to fight it off." Like, no, it's just happening. And they just are fighting it off, holding the boundary. And this is part of why is they've learned the technique of, at any level, whatever someone's energy is coming at you, you can just almost like mirror it right back to them. And this is actually a technique you can use too. And I teach this to my students, where you imagine yourself held in a mirror and nothing can come in. And some people say, whoa, 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 nothing? Like, what about the good? What about the people who love you? What about the well wishes? What about the people who are manifesting good things with you? No, nothing. Nothing. And it's not sad, actually. In fact, it's pretty cool, because anytime someone wishes you well, the well wish is going right back to them. Anytime someone thinks of loving you, love is coming right back at them. Anytime someone is like, man, I hope Lindsay gets millions of dollars. Well, millions of dollars energy is coming back at them. It's perfect. And also, if they're wishing you harm, it's just going right back at them. If they're trying to attack you on a spiritual and mental level, they're attacking themselves. Any energy they're creating and directing to you is going right back to themselves. And there could never be actually anything better than that. And in fact, it's a metaphor for the whole universe. But we could get to that another day at another time. So if you want a method of sort of protection, think of it that way, you can visualize this mirror around you all times. And you can say to yourself, everything that comes towards me from outside of myself just goes right back to its source. And the true source is within you anyway. It doesn't come from outside of you. It comes from within you. God is here. Universe is here. Everything is here. You're here, here in the heart. So there's nothing, you're not lacking. You're not cutting yourself off from source. You're just saying, all energy thrown at me goes back to its source. It's a beautiful technique. It's like this Aikido. It's like the soft martial arts techniques. And it's a good way to just think of how you can hold your energy in the world as a way to deal with the fact that there is evil, that there are psychopaths, and that there are those that would attempt to overcome your boundaries, your needs, and your worth, and do you harm. Right? We have the physical version of it in Aikido. We have the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological side of it in that mirror technique. So try it if you like it. But right, this is a sort of way to avert any darkness that is not coming from within you. Oh, excuse me here. And people say like, yeah, okay. I get, like, we can deflect the spiritual. There's, if you have a parasite in you, there's a reason you kind of like created that. So you got to change the environment, you got to change your boundaries, and you got to whatever and clarify. And okay, now you're a better warrior and all of this. But like, come on, some people just get sick. Some people get sick. They just catch a disease or whatever. They just catch an illness, or and that's not anyone's fault. And even the healthiest people get sick. So like, why? There's no purpose to this. this is just darkness, or this is just, no, actually, there's a purpose to that too. There's a purpose to that too. And it's not super popular. And in fact, we've been indoctrinated out of it, understanding it. But it used to be the common understanding of most people in most cultures and most places in the world that when you get sick, you're actually purifying. Your body is purifying itself. When you are sick, you are actually dumping a bunch of cells that no longer work. That's why all this stuff comes out in various ways of your body, because your body's getting rid of like dead cells that aren't functioning correctly anymore, cells that were a part of a structure that has been rebuilt, right? Which your body's doing all the time. And normally it can get rid of all of that just in simple ways that you're, every day you spit and you sweat and you defecate and urinate and you cry or whatever. There's things coming out of you and your body can get rid of stuff in that way. And sometimes it gets so built up or backed up that you have to get really sick so that a lot comes out constantly over and over again every time. You think of an illness where you're not shedding more from your body than average. This doesn't really exist. If it's an illness, it's something's coming out, possibly in many ways. And that's what your body's doing. It's getting rid of it. A very, very simple take on this is food poisoning. You eat the poison, your body gets rid of it vehemently. It's just like, right? Every illness is actually that same process. Your body is purifying something. So even though you hate it, you feel sick, you don't want it, I don't want this, it's actually good. It's actually a good process. You actually would not want the opposite. And people have been convinced that there's viruses, even though literally there has never been a single shred of evidence for a single virus existing. I could talk to you all day about that if you don't know yet, but go research it yourself. No evidence at all. And no evidence of transmission that viruses can transmit between life. None. In fact, we've taken snot from a very sick person who we say has the flu, and we've put it in other people. And we've done this hundreds of times in experiments in labs. Never. You would guess at least a couple times someone got sick. Zero people have ever gotten sick by transmission in any sort of laboratory setting, period. There is no such thing. We don't know that, or most people don't know that. So even what we call viral infection is still this body's process of getting rid of what it needs to get rid of. You're purifying. It's not very popular. We've been indoctrinated out of it. People don't necessarily understand it. It takes a lot of getting used to. If you've never heard that before, you just reject it and rebel against it. And I get it. It's cool. Do whatever you need to do. In the meantime, this is what the body's doing. That's absolutely the process. So even sickness, you actually need it. And some of us knew this even when we were children, some of us being me and other whatever you want to call light workers or the like that are here on planet Earth. We knew when we were kids. My parents would try to give me Tylenol to reduce my fever and I wouldn't take it. And they'd be like, why? And I'm like, because I'm pretty sure my body needs the fever. Like, it just seemed so obvious to me. And I was like 4 years old. If you really think about it deeply enough, you know it too. And yeah, if it gets up high enough, take it down. Sure, do whatever you need. And I'm supposed to legally say that you should do whatever your doctor says too. So go do that. In the meantime, understand your body is purifying when it's ill, and illness is actually therefore another thing that seems dark to us, but is actually positive. It actually serves a purpose. We actually need it, and we wouldn't want to live without it. We do this spiritually too. We do it spiritually by coming up against hardships in our life. We come up sometimes against the same thing and again, and we go, why can't I just get out of this cycle? Or why does it keep happening to me? It's because our karma is still not neutralized. It's because our karma is still not transformed. It's because we still haven't gotten to the place where we accept our own role in the behaviors or the lack of boundaries or the choices we made, right? We still haven't gotten to that place, so we just keep coming up against it, right? What we actually have to do, and we'll suffer. We'll go through depression, anxiety, we'll lose relationships, we'll go through really dark periods in our life over these types of things. Again, it's within our responsibility. It's within our choice. It's within our ability to affect, right? We have to get to the point where we say, what do I need to do differently How can I look at it differently? How can I act differently? How can I choose differently so that I don't keep experiencing this, so that I don't keep getting in relationships that fail, so that I don't keep dating unavailable men, or so that I don't keep snapping at my mother when she says certain things, right? Whatever the thing is, so I don't keep losing jobs or whatever it is, right? What is it that I'm doing? What do I do? What can I do differently? Oh, and it's rough. Like, life will sometimes be like, here, you're going to get sick and you're going to confront that thing, and this psychopath's going to come try to invade your boundaries and like all at once. So, what then? Whew, that's some good training. That's some high level purification. So, sometimes when it seems like it's all being piled on, like you're in a really good opportunity actually to really rise above it all. This is like the least favorite times for people. But I've learned actually, like, again and again, I'm like, oh, here's a really challenging time again. Like, okay, how am I going to go through this like a pro? How am I going to do this? Because I already know the more I do it well, the less I ever experience this again. My life has just gotten better and better and better and better and better and better and better. Really, really hard things will happen, even as that graph is going upwards. And still, during those down moments, I'll go, okay, I know this is actually lifting me up higher. I know I'm purifying on the soul level, on the mental level, on the emotional level. And so let's go. Let's do it. And again, just like I had to thank the demons and the parasites and the everything, I have to say, thank you for the opportunity to get better, to kick ass, to prove to myself who I really am. And, here we have this one of these great thinkers of the world, often ignored. Not many people know him, Baruch Spinoza. And this quote says, how would it be possible if salvation were ready to our hand and could without great labor be found, that it should be by almost all men and women neglected? He's saying, if salvation is just right here, if you can just have it, how come everyone doesn't have it? If it can be found just super easily, salvation, then why isn't everyone saved? He says, but all things excellent are all difficult as they are rare. I had this dream once. I had this opportunity to gain a lot of wisdom, access to knowledge that isn't easily found, high level people and thinkers that are, my whole life I was looking and didn't find many. And all of a sudden I had this ability or this opportunity to do it. And I was kind of like, I don't know, why doesn't everybody get to do this? Or why doesn't everybody have this? And then I realized everybody does actually have this opportunity. Just no one chooses it, right? Like, if you go to New York and you have that great central library, it's beautiful, it's huge, it's ancient, they have amazing texts in there. Who's going? Who's going to like dig up these oldest books and read through them and find the gems? Who's going to read the research on how many people have ever had a virus transmitted between them officially, right? Not many people, but they all can. The library's free, right? Salvation is actually here. It's readily at hand. Your ability to purify is actually right here. It's readily at hand, but who's choosing it? Not many people. And it seems really difficult. It actually seems easier to me than not choosing it. It's just that we don't really think of it that. We don't really know it. We don't really always let ourselves experience it that way. But like I said, it seems easier to me to have the very strict boundary that not one person ever can even cross a tiny bit than it is to have the life where people are sucking off of you all the time and you never have what you need. And those really are the two options for me, right? You go into the library and you learn, or you spend your time in the streets ignorant and dirty and cold. But you get to choose. But which one's actually hard? We pretend, I think, the higher road is hard. I don't think it actually is. I think it's harder not to. I think we just haven't thought of it that way. Oops, one more quote. Well, there was another Baruch Spinoza quote. Let me open it this way. Oh, that's not working either. Well, here it is. He says, whence it appears how potent is the wise man, and how much he surpasses the ignorant man who is driven only by his lusts. For the ignorant man is not only distracted in various ways by external causes without ever gaining the true acquiescence of his spirit, but moreover lives, as it were, unwitting of himself and of God and of things. And as soon as he ceases to suffer, he ceases also to be. And this is exactly what I just said. It is the ignorant person who won't go into the library. It is the ignorant person who won't go do the research. It is the ignorant person who will, instead of saying, I can choose differently, I can create a different outcome, and it is up to me to do so, will say, that seems hard. And also, poor me, and I'm a victim, and I'm going to go do all these other things instead. And none of those things in themselves should be judged. It's just the general series of choices. Right? You're going to live in distraction and ignorance of yourself and who you really are, of your value, of your worth. Then you're going to suffer. You're going to be in the darkness. You're going to have the parasites. You're going to have the people around you who take from you. You're going to have attacks. You're going to have negative karma cycle back to you again and again and again and again. And you're the only one who can stop that. And that is the purpose of darkness, to remind you that you can, to train you how, and to clean up all your garbage that you leave lying around in the meantime, and to strip it from you when you're ready to let it go. This is the purpose of darkness, and this is why it is actually good for us. It is actually something that we need. And we don't have to invite it. We don't want to experience it. That's the whole point. We can avoid it. And we also have to honor that it exists for a purpose, and that it only exists in our sphere when we let it. If you ever want help obtaining those goals, if you ever want help jumping through those flaming circles of karmic challenge, if you ever want to rise up into your highest self or understand more deeply any of the things I talk about here on these shows, you can always go to rogueways.org, where I have my soul services, my healing services, my coaching and talk services, and my group events and more. So that's all at rogueways.org. My books are there as well. If you want to read the channeled messages before they end up in the books, as they come out, you can go to rogueways.substack.com. This is where they all come through. You can subscribe there for free or paid. I would love for you to do both. Go to rogueways.org and subscribe on my email list, and also be a member at substack.com and get all those messages as they come out. And I, of course, want you to be able to access messages. Some of the stuff I do feels out of reach to some people. So I do Lightning Oracle Tuesdays every first and third Tuesday of the month. And it's super affordable for you. It's just $10. You can hop in and get a message. It's also a really powerful group setting. And so healing and beautiful energy gets to come through and uplift you when you are there. It is really powerful. Anytime we all come together in a group, all of our energy combines to make it easier for all of us to go deeper, to go higher, to get more purification. I hear this all the time. I've heard it for years and years and years. Every group event I've done, people say, I've never had that strong of an experience with it. I've never gone that deep. And every time, and yes, and that's a testament to me and what I've been able to do with life, but it's a testament to all of you showing up and being there. We do this together. And until you know it, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceed as mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.